Guardians, Ghosts, and Gamers. This is Artist Poet, also known as Hako. And yeah, I am here doing my daily, the ritual, as like Bungie used to like to call it. No games should be a ritual. No game should feel like homework. No games should feel like a grind. And on this note, I'm going to bring up a quick little suggestion. Something I was speaking with my son about power levels, power creep, and what we could do, what Bungie could do in the future iterations of Destiny, if in fact they, are going to do some. I mean, well, they're already doing some major shakeups in the game, um, and I think that's fantastic. Sunsetting was an experiment. They tried it out. They found out we didn't like it. It was not solving the balance problems that they have. Um, and there's balance problems are in every game, so you can't get away from it. It's just a thing. Anytime you got more than 15 players playing a game, there's going to be balance problems. And I use 15 as an example because that's about the average uh, gaming pod that I used to run with when I was playing tabletop war games and Dungeons and Dragons kind of stuff. We had about 15, 16 players, and there was always that one person that was like, "I'll be there this weekend," and then they would not show. Um, but yeah, when you start getting to larger events like tournaments and ITCs is what we call them in the wargaming communities, independent tournament circuits, uh, you do come across some balance problems. So you have this thing that's called composition lists, wherein you are restricted to a certain number of units. You have to have a minimum number of this unit, a maximum number of that unit. There may be some actual forces that are off the on a ban list, so you're not able to bring them. Those of you who play Magic the Gathering are familiar with the restricted and banned lists. There's also formats. Now, in Destiny, we have similar things like formats. We have, the Iron Banner, we have Trials of Osiris, and we have regular control, casual PvP, and then we have the competitive PvP. And supposedly they're supposed to be by intention self-balancing. In other words, uh, people who show up in Iron Banner, they're going to be of a higher caliber than those who just play Control all week. Similarly, for those who play Trials of Osiris, but people who play Trials and Iron Banner got to have a place to train. And guess where they're training? Well, they're not training in survival, my friends. No, they're training in Control because that's Iron Banner's base, and they're trying. Well, they could be in survival or elimination. Actually, elimination because that is, I think, the format base for Trials of Osiris. Now, neither Control nor elimination are quote unquote competitive modes. Um, they are battle leveled, which means everybody's playing on the same battlefield, same power level, more or less, within about 5 levels plus or minus. The big problem that comes from that is that while you are training for your so-called pinnacle activity, aka endgame content, um, you are training in an environment where everybody is more or less balanced. Then you get into the endgame content, and balance is gone. It is quite feasible for a team of, let's set an arbitrary number. Let's say 300s. Okay, so you got a team of 300 power guardians that can actually fight against a team of 200 power guardians because there is a very shallow floor of entry to Iron Banner, and this is an inherent problem when it comes to matching players, especially when your day is either very heavy or very light. You got to squeeze people into play because the average gamer will get frustrated if they have to sit there for more than a minute and a half waiting for a lobby to spawn. They'll go off and do other things, or they'll go off and play other games. You don't want to lose the interest of your audience. You got to keep things moving. This is why, as you can notice, I've gotten my point across, my thesis across already within 4 minutes, which is, in my opinion, pretty damn good. But the thing I want to talk about is power levels, specifically power levels. We don't need them in Destiny. You don't need to have power levels in Destiny. And I'm going to cite a game that you've heard me talk about quite an awful lot, and I've even streamed a little bit about. Conan Exiles is a sandbox survival game. It is a first-person, third-person active game. You mostly swords and sandals. There is some minor sorcery in it, but whatever. Your character has only one attack. Actually, he's got two attacks. Um, he's got a regular melee swing and then which is the L2, and then he's got the R2. Then he's got an L2, which is either a kick or a shield bash, depending if you're equipped with a shield or not. Everything in Conan is all based upon recipes. You learn how to make daggers so that you can fight with daggers. You learn how to make swords so you can fight with swords. And it's all your skills. Now, yes, you can buff things up with potions and armor perks and things like that. And you can do the same thing here in Destiny. You know, you can still have armor perks that give you a little bit extra melee hit. You can have, your strength stats. You can have your intellect stat. What I'm talking about is that you don't have a power stat, because your power is a modifier to whatever your armor already is. But if you take away the power level, you don't have to worry about anything else but what you've strategized for your loadout. And that includes also the use of special abilities or access to special potions, or let's be blunt about it, combat drugs. Um, because when you think about what a guardian can do, the light is essentially a combat drug. And we have, special abilities which are the effects of that combat drug. Now we have access to stasis or the darkness abilities, so that's a second combat drug. I'm not saying that drugs are good and drugs are that every military uses drugs, but I'm just saying that when it comes to analogs between Conan Exiles and Destiny and what's already in the game from Destiny that is similar functionally to what's in Conan, the light operates like the potions of strength and agility and accuracy, and our ability, our character's native stats and the um, armor stat buffs, they all contribute to such set abilities. So just as in Conan, I could specialize as a melee fighter or I could specialize as a ranged fighter. And if I specialize as a melee fighter, I've got my choice between focusing on sundering damage debuffs, bleed damage debuffs, which are dots. Sundering is a way to reduce a target's armor. Or I could do speed debuffs, which is cripple, which would be the same as me using stasis. Um, or the tether fields that the hunter can launch. So it's all pretty much right there. The one thing that seems to be throwing the pie out the window when you go to cool it off is the power levels, because everything in the game is based on your activity in the game is based on power levels. But what I've been seeing, especially amongst my direct fire team, is that we seem to be less concerned about power level and more concerned about what we're getting on our rolls. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, if you go out to any other content creator's page, what they talk about, they don't talk about how to get to max level for the season right away, because everybody knows how to do that. You just grind your ass. What they talk about is what rolls you're looking for on the guns that are coming out and the armor that's rolling out, and that's mostly the exotic armor. And they're discussing builds that focus on sustainability and damage output and debuffs and buffs when you're doing things like Grandmaster whatevers. And so it's like power levels becoming more and more archaic in this game, and it really is. It is the one barrier that a lot of people do get hung up on, a lot of new players get hung up on, and a lot of people base their need or desire to continue playing on. And I think if you took away power level, the first thing that'll happen is that the lines between competitive and casual PvP will be completely gone. You can train all week in Control for Iron Banner, or train all month in Control for Iron Banner. You can train all week in Elimination for Trials of Osiris. And when you get there, the only thing that's going to be determining who really wins is not your power levels, but your player skill. And consider that. So, if there's no 315 versus 308, then you're not going to be having to worry about people feeling like they've been hamstrung or cheated out. If you don't want to see, because like I said, the one thing I've been complaining about the last 2 months, obviously, because goes back to this is introspect. When you're, yeah. Anyway, the thing that's been holding me back in power levels, and why I'm kind of ranting a little bit right now, is that last night my fire team and we tried to do the Grandmaster Nightfall, and I really don't have an interest in the perk on the weapon I don't even know what the hell. We were going for some SMG, but I don't know what the fuck that was and what roles they were looking for. Was that? The Swarm. Okay, machine guns. Sorry. So I didn't even know, but all I knew was that hey, my fire team wants to play. I want to play with them. Let's have some fun. And no, I'm 2 power levels below the Grandmaster minimum, which means that even at the minimum, I'd be struggling. Um, and it really pissed me off because the first thing in my first thought was, if I had access to Crucible and Iron Banner and Gambit, I'd have those pinnacle drops to make my power level happen. And then I started thinking this morning, well, you know what? If there wasn't any power level and it was just your perks on your weapons and your armor and your character's abilities that he chose to use, power level wouldn't matter. Grandmaster could still be a fucking, a slam fest. Grandmaster could still have all the skulls in it. That makes it challenging enough as it is. You could still have, ramped up damage levels and things like that for your enemies, and toughness levels for the enemies and everything like that. You could still have those metrics in there. What I'm saying is that unarmored guardian has a 100 base stat line. Okay, let's take a look at this. All right. Waiting. Okay, so this right here forms your actual power level. This total is what your power level should be. All right. When I play a game like Warhammer 40,000 or Raid Shadow Legends, they have power levels in them as well, but it is a rough estimate of what your total power is. These numbers here do not affect this in this game right now as it is. This 1322 is based completely and solely on my equipped gear. It means absolutely nothing outside of that. This is how much damage I could put out. This right here modifies how much damage this actually puts out. So, having an auto rifle, all auto rifles could deal a flat rate of damage. All sniper rifles deal a flat damage. All sidearms deal a flat damage. All boots, chests, arms, helmets, all armors resist a flat amount of damage. That could be modified by this, and your recovery is there. All right, so if we just went with these numbers right here, then when you design a difficult activity, it's all about the modifiers in that activity, because that's what skulls back in Halo used to be. Because in Halo, your sidearm did a fixed amount of damage. When you PvP'd in Halo, everybody was a Spartan. Everybody was a Spartan. Or you could play an Arbiter, I think, in later editions, an Elite. But you all did a fixed amount of damage. You all resisted a fixed amount of damage. Yeah. Sorry, I gotta be wrapping this up. Basically, let's think about playing the game without power level. Let's consider the idea and just let this be what drives our character. Let the skulls or the modifiers determine the difficulty of the activity. When you play survival, you get fixed numbers of reses. When you play elimination, you can res each other and stuff like that, but you have a limited number of that as well. When you play Grandmaster last night, there was a string of fucking skulls. On top of that, all the enemies have higher shields and higher armor. So, Bungie, if you happen to stumble across this, and I hope you have somebody out there who's looking at this kind of stuff, this is something that could go away, and I don't think anybody would really miss it. In fact, it would make the game a lot more easier for sandbox balancing. It would put more of an emphasis on doing activities that afforded you better types of gear. Give us a real reason to play the game and chase the loot, because honestly, if I spend 80% of my time just dismantling all the shit that I pick up, I could be spending that time looking for groups to play with. I could be spending that time thinking about, ooh, hipfire moving target. That's a Swiss Army knife for an auto rifle, and I really like it for that way. But if I got that moving target, switched out for something else, that might be kind of cool too. Um, Same goes for my officer revolver. But you get the point. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. I'll catch you later.